My name is Lester M. Griebenow, born in Rochester, Minnesota, way back in 1933. Graduated from Rochester High School in 1952. Was drafted in the spring of 1953 into the Korean War by my friends and neighbors. I was.
What does that mean? You were drafted by your friends and neighbors.
Well, that's a letter we received from the government saying that our friends and neighbors volunteered us for draft. Well, there's 19 of us that are seniors in high school that had our physicals and everything in Fort Snelling, Minnesota. We graduated in 53. Right after that, we were hauled away in buses up to the cities. 19 of us. We went and had our physicals up there again, and we boarded buses there and went to Fort Sheridan, Illinois, to get our uniforms. And we got on a troop train there in Fort Sheridan, Illinois, and headed to Fort Smith, Arkansas, Camp Chaffee, Arkansas. We landed there hotter than the dickens. Guys were passing out on the concrete patios and decks and wherever. But anyway, we made it. There's where I took my basic training, is in infantry training, artillery training, leadership school, and cadre school. Now I'll explain a little bit of each one of these episodes. I was a squad leader because I was my height, and I had 5 to 6 guys under me to be trained with. As pictures in the books show that I'm all over the place help training these guys. I'll go back one step. When I was in high school, I was a miler running the mile for 3 years, and I was in good shape. So that's why I was selected as a squad leader. Well, after 7 weeks in basic training, I'm going to use some language. Maybe you can cut it out.
You can keep eye contact with me.
That all hell broke loose. The first sergeant came over and just chewed me out because I wasn't answering to what he was calling my name. So one day he came to me and he wanted to know why I was such a bad soldier. And I says, I'm not a bad soldier. I dress in my uniform. I'm presented myself properly. And why do you think I'm a bad soldier? Well, you says, you never answer when I call your name. I says, sir, I've been here 7 weeks and you don't know who we are. I says, my dog tags and my paperwork are wrong. And I told him then, he put his nose to my nose. And he told me I was a wise guy, a troublemaker. And I just told him he had a great sweet smile on his face, and he got all mad. And he told me to give me 50 push-ups. So I fell down and gave him 50 push-ups. In the process of the 50 push-ups, I says, just 50? And the whole crew just laughed and shouted. He says, I want to see you after retreat tonight because we got to straighten out this mess. I says, yes, sir. So after retreat, I reported to the officer's office and presented myself in front of the battalion commander and two drill sergeants. I approached the table, addressed myself, and sat down. They told me to take a seat. So I sat down. He says, "We're here to find out why you are such a bad soldier." I says, "Well, sir, I'm not a bad soldier. I'm an American citizen. They drafted me. And I don't know what the problem is, but what you're calling me is not my name, and I don't answer to my name." I says, "I don't care what you call these people out here in the drill field, but you do not know your men." I said, "I've been here 7 weeks, and you don't know who I am." I says, "My dog tags are spelled wrong? No. My address is wrong? Now you tell my folks if I get killed in Korea, how you're going to answer that. Because you do not have a good record of me and the men out there. There's 408 Gaivas as in our outfit that was being trained." And the officer says, "Well, we take it for granted that the paperwork we get from the recruiting office, draft office from the government are accurate." I says, "That's not my fault. That's yours because you're not doing your job." He says, "Well, we'll look into that." That was on a Thursday. Friday morning, they made an announcement at Reverly that they were going to start investigating all military records in our battalion. Starting Monday evening, that was my job after retreat. So I went through 408 of the new recruits, and we found many, many errors in their paperwork that were not accurate. So after that, I finished artillery training 8 more weeks, and they approached me to go to leadership school then, which is a 9-week course. I said, "Yes, I'll go." So I went. They says, "Because you were so dedicated in making sure and proud of what you were doing and took care of these men in our outfit and reported what you found." So that was a 9-week course there. I went on then 2 weeks and more of new basic training outfit to look at some of their paperwork, and we've still found a lot of errors. After that, then they sent me to cadre school. That was another 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that, to learn to be a drill sergeant. I didn't care for that because it wasn't my life. Anyway, I spent 36 weeks in basic training. Most spend 6 to 8 weeks, 9 weeks. I spent 36 weeks. And then after that, I left Fort Smith and went home for a 10-day furlough and then on to Fort Lewis, Washington. Aboard a ship headed for Korea.
And what was that date?
Oh, goodness. That was 4 days before Christmas in 1954. I was drafted in spring of 53. So that would have been the winter of, yeah. I left there on 4 days before Christmas in 1953. I'm sorry, 53. Aboard a troop ship, 4,500 guys on. We went up Alaska first, left them off. Whittier, Alaska. Then when the storm was so bad, we had a zigzag around the Aleutian Islands. We anchored off in North Korea, North Japan, because the storms were too bad. Anyway, we docked in Yokohama, finally. And there they sent me to CBR school. My life has been in classrooms all my time so far. But anyway, so I went to CBR school in Yokohama, Hiroshima, where they dropped the bombs, toured all that, and then finally sent down to southern end of Korea, Busan. By that time, it was middle of January of '54 already. They kept us there for a while. They were going to take us up to Seoul or Incheon to land. Well, the weather was so bad then yet, they took us back all the way around to Yokohama, Japan, and then back to Busan. We finally left Busan in the spring by train from Busan up to Incheon or in Seoul. There I got there at midnight. It was a 3-day trip. The cars had no floors in it. You sat on benches along the cars on that side and on this side like paratroopers. And you had your duffel bag underneath your legs. The car was open as it traveled along because if you had to drop out in case attack or anything, you could get out. Oh, okay, that's the way we traveled for 3 days on C rations and K rations. We didn't have food. So I got there about midnight. I had no idea where I was going, what country I was in anymore. And I woke up the next morning out in the boonies someplace, 60-some miles northeast of Seoul. Kumwa Valley was the place where I was at. They didn't have a place for me yet, so I stayed in a big tent with truck drivers. The outfit I was assigned to was a heavy artillery outfit. We had 113 trucks, 18 big guns. The guns were 8-inch in diameter, and the projectile was 28 inches long and weighed 235 pounds each. They could fire the range from here to Cannon Falls, 60-some miles, up into North Korea. It wasn't a ground weapon. It was to knock out roads and bridges, buildings, convoys, anything coming down. I was asked that, because I was a tool and die apprentice in high school. I'm going back now, why I ended up there where I was. I started out in metal cutting, machine tooling, at the age of 13. My father worked in a power plant, and he always took me with him in evenings to work on machines and so forth, drill presses, lathes, you name it, milling machines. So I started that then. Well, anyway, they saw that because of the welder they had there in the outfit went home blind. He did not have the right equipment to protect himself. He burned his eyes. So they asked me if I'd become a field machinist and a welder, and I said, yes. So that's what I started out to be. We had 18 guns, 113 trucks, and each gun had 9 men crew. And my job was to keep these weapons and equipment war ready. I had a truck assigned to me. It had a machine shop in the back and a big trailer in the back where we had a welder, power, and things to use. And that I went from one side of Korea to the east side to the west side, where these guns were mounted so many miles apart. And these weapons came from Fort Sill, Oklahoma. They were not winterized. They froze. The trucks were not winterized. Nothing was right. We had one officer, I never met him, but he told the gun crew to put a fire underneath the gun to keep it warm so it would fire. Well, the North Korea figured that out with four placements of these big guns. Something was going on. So, therefore, spotter got the message that there were gun emplacements over there keeping warm so they could fire. Well, the North Koreans overrun the four gun emplacements, and these gunners became prisoners. They destroyed the guns so they couldn't use them.
About what date was that?
Oh, that must have been about March of '54. It was already not quite ceasefire yet, so they had to be war ready at all times. Anyway, so I got over there after the U.S. or the UN troops pushed the Koreans back up north, because they destroyed all the stuff, and see what we could use or bring back.
What date did you arrive in Korea?
Well, it would be January 3rd or 4th, something like that, in '54.
So you arrived after the signing of the armistice?
No, it just yes. But the war was still going on the DMZ line up there. Anyway, that's where I got involved, then moving from one outfit to the other with the four guns with the gun crews, working with them because the things weren't war ready. Well, by that spring, we had artillery practice, and a lot of the guns would not fire because they were just obsolete World War II stuff that was sent over there. The prime movers, that's the big movers that moved the troops with ammo on it. The 113 trucks were supposed to bring their supplies up from Seoul. Transmissions didn't work. They were froze and everything. My work to work with the gun crews all the way across Korea and back and forth until they were satisfied that when they got a call, that piece of equipment would fire. And the ammo was there for them to use. I was never back to where I was first bedded down when I arrived in Korea for 9 months. I was on the run back and forth. I was living with C rations, K rations, whatever I could talk out. I did not have a bath or a shower for 9 months. And that's the way I lived until they got everything right and pulled the guns back to one place and see what they could do with the weapons. By that time, that was getting towards November of '54. I don't know where they ended up. I heard they ended up in Vietnam, but they never used them because they were too heavy for the soil. They sunk with the heavy equipment. But when I was going back and forth across Korea, the DMZ line was established, but there was no marking. These big highline towers where they, like big towers where they had power lines going on. I saw a couple of them, and I went over there and started cutting them up with my acetylene torch, and I got a tap on my shoulder. And this MP says, "You get the hell out of here." I said, "I need the iron to reinforce my artillery pieces." And he says, "The North Koreans are watching you right over that hill. They can come and get you at any time, because I could pull my glasses down or my helmet and they could take me as a prisoner because you're in the DMZ line." I says, "Well, there's no marking." "Oh, this is pre-marking yet." Oh, okay. There's a 6-mile band in there, 3 on that side and 3 on this side. That is vacant. You can't go there. So that's why I never been back to where I was. I can't get there. That was Kumaw Valley, Cherwon Valley, near the Iron Triangle and Pork Chop Hill and all these places in the middle of the country. Then we pulled back. Well, in the meantime, we didn't have the equipment. I did not have the equipment for safety. I had to send my welding helmet and my acetylene gas goggles from home because the Army didn't have any. They lost them or destroyed them. We didn't have gloves for welding. I got my burns yet. I live with them. This gentleman came from Arkansas. He went home with burnt eyes because he was told to do welding, and he had no protection. He'd squint, burned his eyes. And this officer says, "Well, the equipment you got, Les, is not Army regulation. You cannot use them." I put them over here on my trailer, and I says, "Okay, get somebody else to do it." He says, "We can't. We don't have anybody. We can't wait." I says, "Well, then you want it today or tomorrow to make this stuff war ready." I was a troublemaker all the way through my military service. The officer says, "Okay, but you're the only one that can use it." And okay, I had a South Korean helper, but he couldn't use the equipment. He was the grunt, doing whatever had to be done. Once in a while, we would have movies. With the projectile was in the back end of one deuce and a half, and the screen would be in the other deuce and a half under cover. We were told to sit in between the two trucks so we could see it, so they can't see the light, see? So that's what we had for movies once in a while. But it wasn't nice movies or anything. It was old stuff, old cameras and stuff like that. The best thing we had, though, we were next to a Canadian government supply depot that they would bring over a 50 whiskey for us a month. 12 of us in this service battery. So we had our own whiskey, free. We had this guy from Kentucky. His mother would send him boxes of popcorn. and say, here's some popcorn for you guys. Okay. We'd have popcorn. About 3-4 days later, I'd say, well, where's the popcorn? Oh, I sent it back to my mother. You what? Send it back to your mother? Yeah. What, he wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a drinker either. Still not. Or a smoker. But he would go around and collect the fifth of whiskeys from the guys that didn't drink, put them in the box, and put the popcorn back in it and send it back to his mother. We had more fun. We had an Indian left over from World War II. He was a track man. He worked on the tracks on the Caterpillars and so forth. And this lumberjack from northern Wisconsin, Mort, we called him. He was a big guy. He was taller. I don't know how he got in the service, but he was taller than the cot was long. So he hung over both ends. Them two guys, when they got their fifth of whiskey, it would chug along. And the Indian always won. I don't know why, but he won. He would go over and kick Mort all the time and say, come on, get going, you know. We had the best 12 guys that you could be together because that's all that we were. We were detached from another outfit because of our service business we had to do. We had to do it under cover. Guard duty, we did guard duty regardless of what rank you were. There wasn't an officer there. World War II first sergeant was there. He was in charge. He even pulled guard duty. So we were away from anybody. All we had is C rations and K rations. We're up in the hills. We're back a little ways. They had good meals. I made a deep freeze for the mess hall out of barrels so that they could haul up some decent food up certain areas and stuff like that. But one thing we did, we had a Caterpillar, an old Caterpillar left over from World War II, where the cable went over the top to the blade and raised it up and down. We extended the blade a foot on each side so we could make our gun emplacements faster and then get the guns in faster. And we used it to dish out a mountain stream. And we made a dam then. I got pictures of it here, I'll show you. That was our bath and shower. We didn't have anything up there. We were in the nude. We thought we were all by ourselves. There was a country road over there. There was a path, let's say, just for military vehicles, trucks and hauling ammo supply. Well, we were in there, I don't know what, in the summertime anyway. It was nice, the water clear. 12 of us in there in the nude. The next day we caught hell because there's a truckload of Red Cross nurses that went by and saw us, and they were about 100 yards away. And they complained. From then on, we had to wear our boxer shorts in this little creek bed. And the officers said, well, what do you think of that? And I says, well, sir, I think it's quite ridiculous. Why didn't they just stop and take a good look at a soldier instead of a sailor? You know, we didn't have nothing. We had one guy that was throwing his bayonet for practice through our tent door, made out of ammo boxes, supplies, standing practice and stuff like that. We didn't have nothing. We finally moved out overnight, split us up. I have no idea where the other guys went. Nobody knows where I went. 2 of us get together out of the 12 He lives in Chicago, and that's the way it is.
What's his name?
Now you got me on the spot. I'd have to look it up. It's been many, many years. Coleman is his last name, but every time I would go through Chicago, I'd go and see him and stop him. And he was an engine mechanic, and I wasn't supposed to harmonize with these guys unless it was a welding or something had to be cleaned out. See, some of these truck drivers from Seoul coming up would run into farmers that were walking along roads, and across their A-frame on the back, they would carry big long poles or barrels or anything. Well, the truck drivers there coming by would see if they could just nick them and spin them into the ditch. Well, if they damaged the truck up, we had to fix it. And they would say, well, keep it off the record, will you? Yeah, we can keep it off the record. It's going to cost you a case of beer or whatever you can get your hands on, or alcohol. We had 10 cases of beer in this little mountain stream. Flash flood come and took it all. Took our booze away from us, you know. Yeah, that was quite an experience, I'll tell you that. No, I don't want to go back because I can't get there. I didn't see the good side of going into Seoul. I never got there until we debarked in early spring of Korea, and went around to Tokyo then. There's a camp called Camp Drake outside of Tokyo. And that's where I landed for, I don't know, 60 days. Then I was discharged, sent home.
What was your date of discharge?
Sure, you would tell me. I think it was April or May of '55. Then I came back home here and went back to where I was working before in this machine shop. And I says, I can't cut this. I got to find something. I went back to school for a while to work on my GI Bill and finishing my tool maker's apprenticeship, being certified. And by that time, IBM was having announcement in Minneapolis. They were looking for tool makers out in Minneapolis. So I applied there and got hired and sent out to Endicott, New York, and started there, and then transferred back here to Rochester in '56. And I was with them for 27 years. But that didn't end my career path, though, in the military. You people heard of the night vision goggles that they used over in the Gulf War? I was a manufacturing engineer on them. And they were assembled, tested, and proven for the United States government and our troops right here in Stewartville, Minnesota. We built them for 2.5 years before the Gulf War was even going. We sent 125 units a week out. 80 women put them together. But then the Gulf War ended, and that was my job. It was gone too. So I moved on to another place and finished my career in Chatfield, down there where they manufacture and make big fiberglass structural stuff. So I retired in '96. Now I'm still active with the Korean War Color Guards here in town. Been a commander, and you name it. I enjoy our club and having a good time.